During a blackout, my wife was unaware that I had returned home early. In the shadows, I overheard her speaking to our neighbor, saying that once the insurance payout from his accident comes through next month, we could finally be together. They clinked their wine glasses, plotting my end. I quietly slipped away and returned later with a flashlight, pretending to be surprised to find them together. 2 weeks later, my phone began receiving increasingly frantic voice messages from her. The thing is, Ellie and I had been together for 8 years, married for 6. We met at a friend's party in New York, back when social gatherings were common. Before everything changed, I won't pretend our marriage was flawless. We had our highs and lows like any couple. The spark had dimmed, but I assumed that was just the nature of long-term relationships. Our neighborhood had been experiencing rolling blackouts due to some grid maintenance issues. Usually it wasn't a major inconvenience. A couple of hours without power and life would continue. Last month, Ellie kept mentioning life insurance, suggesting we increase my policy just in case. It made sense at the time since our hot water heater was leaking. The roof needed repairs after a storm, and money was tight. I signed the paperwork to bump it up to $500,000 without a second thought. Eduardo moved in next door about a year ago after his divorce. He seemed like a decent guy and often came over to borrow tools or ask for help with his lawnmower. Looking back, those little repairs probably didn't require my assistance. But whatever. Ellie started inviting him over for dinner sometimes, saying she felt sorry for him being alone. She would dress up for those dinners, putting in more effort than she did for just us, but I brushed it off. Last Tuesday, we had another blackout. Scheduled for 6 p.m, I was heading home, early because my friend cancelled our plans. No big deal. I didn't text Ellie since my phone was nearly dead. I arrived around 5:30, just as the power went out. Perfect timing, right? Our garage door opener was broken, so I parked on the street and entered through the side door. The whole house was dark, but I heard laughter coming from the kitchen. Ellie was laughing, but not her usual laugh. It was that high-pitched sound she uses to impress people. Then I heard Eduardo's voice. I'm not usually jealous, so I thought they were just hanging out, but something felt off. Instead of announcing my presence, I stood quietly in the hallway, hidden in the darkness. That's when I heard Ellie discussing their plan, and how it needed to look like an accident. Eduardo asked if she was sure about the timing, and then I heard Ellie say that once the insurance payout came through next month, we could finally be together. They toasted to my demise. My mind short-circuited like when you realize you've been driving for miles without remembering any of it. I felt nauseous, experiencing a rush of conflicting emotions, but I didn't burst in there yelling. Somehow, I quietly backed away and sat in my car for about 20 minutes, trying to process that my wife of 6 years was actually plotting to kill me for insurance money with the neighbor, like something out of a crime drama. I've never considered myself the sharpest tool in the shed, but I'm not naive either. Causing a scene right then would only alert them to my knowledge. So, I drove around aimlessly until it was dark, maybe around 7 p.m, then stopped at a convenience store to buy flashlights, water, and snacks, pretending to just be preparing for the blackout. When I got home, I made plenty of noise, calling out Ellie's name as if everything were normal. She answered from the kitchen, her voice sounding strange and high-pitched. I walked in with the flashlights, and there they were. 2 wine glasses on the table, Eduardo looking guilty, and Ellie wearing a feigned, surprised expression, asking why I was home early. I played dumb, said my buddy cancelled, and handed them each a flashlight, acting as if finding them together was no big deal. Eduardo made some excuse about just stopping by to check if we had power too. I even offered him a beer, watching him squirm as he declined and said he should get going. The next couple of hours were the strangest of my life. Sitting there with Ellie by candlelight, making small talk while knowing she was plotting my death. She kept checking her phone, texting someone, 3 guesses who. I noticed she had put on her nice perfume, the one she reserves for special occasions, and had changed into that blue top I always complimented her on, clearly for Eduardo, not for me. In the following days, I started observing her closely. Ellie had been working late often. Her phone suddenly had a passcode, and she was asking strange questions about my schedule and if I was planning any solo trips. She would act extra nice at times, then distant at others. Classic suspicious behavior, as my nephew would say. Then I stumbled upon her browser history. She had forgotten to clear it. There were searches for undetectable poisons and how to stage an accident, along with average life insurance payout times. It was painfully obvious, like watching a child unsuccessfully try to hide that they stole candy. I also discovered they had been messaging on an encrypted chat app. I couldn't see the messages, but the notifications indicated they were constantly in contact. Meanwhile, Ellie barely spoke to me, except to ask about my upcoming fishing trip with my brothers, the one she insisted I should go on next month, even though she had always disliked it when I went before. Last weekend, I accidentally knocked over her purse and a small bottle fell out. Something that definitely wasn't medicine or perfume, and had no label. She snatched it up quickly and became defensive when I asked what it was, claiming it was just vitamins, but she looked like she'd seen a ghost. The final straw was overhearing her on the phone yesterday. She thought I was in the shower, but I had just turned on the water and was actually retrieving something from the bedroom. She was telling someone, undoubtedly Eduardo, that it had to look natural and they needed to stick to the timeline, mentioning how the fishing trip would be perfect because accidents happen out there. So here I am. My wife of 6 years is actively plotting to kill me for insurance money so she can run off with the neighbor. And they're not even being discreet about it. I've been sleeping with one eye open, scrutinizing everything I eat or drink. I haven't told anyone yet because, to be honest, it sounds insane. Who would believe this? Plus, part of me still can't accept this. Is happening that the woman I've shared a bed with for 8 years wants me dead. Here's my plan. I'm backing up all the evidence I can find, screenshots of her search history, photos of that strange bottle, recordings of anything suspicious she says. I've already transferred most of our savings into an account she can't access and told the bank. I suspected fraud on our joint account, not exactly a lie. I'm going to see a lawyer tomorrow, quietly, to understand my options. I've started recording everything in our house and ordered some small cameras from Amazon, which arrived today. She doesn't know they're there. I'm pretending everything is normal while watching her dig herself deeper. The thing is, I could just confront her or leave, but after 8 years together, after how coldly she planned this, it doesn't feel sufficient. I want her to face real consequences. I want Eduardo to face consequences too. I know revenge isn't healthy or whatever, but I'm not going to just roll over while they conspire to end my life. I want them to regret ever thinking I was someone they could mess with. I'll update when I have more. For now, I'm playing along with their little game while setting up my own strategy. Chess, not checkers. Has anyone ever been through something similar? Am I crazy for not just confronting her or going to the police? Part of me still can't believe this is my life now. Update. First off, wow, my last post blew up like a tire with a nail in it. Thanks for all the awards, DMs, and advice. For those asking for an update, here it is. Fair warning, this is going to be long. These past 2 weeks have been the strangest of my life. Walking around my own house knowing my wife wants me dead is a different experience. It's like driving a car with faulty brakes just waiting for the crash. But I've been keeping my cool, acting normal. I even slept with Ellie twice, which was complicated. She seemed preoccupied, probably thinking about Eduardo or how to poison me. I met with that lawyer I mentioned, a seasoned guy with a messy office and 3 divorces under his belt. Perfect for my situation. He gave me solid advice. Document everything. Protect myself financially and gather evidence. No surprise, but having a professional tell me I'm not crazy was reassuring. My first order of business was cash. We had about $16,000 in our joint savings, not much, but it was all we had after buying the house and dealing with that. Basement flood last year. I couldn't just empty the account. That would be too obvious. So I devised a plan. I confessed to Ellie that I had a gambling problem. I know how that sounds, but hear me out. I told her I had secretly been gambling online for months and lost a couple of grand. I said I needed help and was going to join a support group, the whole 9 yards. I even showed her some fake betting history I made on Photoshop. She bought it completely, even doing that supportive thing, rubbing my back and saying we'd get through it together. An Oscar-worthy performance considering she's planning my funeral. The beauty of this gambling problem is that it justifies any strange financial moves. I transferred most of our savings to a new account, leaving just enough to avoid suspicion, telling her it was to protect me from myself. I also explained why we needed separate accounts for a while. She loved that idea, but her thoughts were likely on how convenient it would be after I was gone. Next, I needed to create tension between Ellie and Eduardo. A marriage is like a machine. It looks complicated from the outside, but it's just a collection of moving parts that can each be manipulated separately. I noticed Eduardo gets extremely jealous when Ellie speaks to other guys. At our neighbor's cookout last weekend, I observed his expression change when she was chatting with the host. So, I began casually mentioning other men when talking to Ellie, saying things like, "Oh, that guy from your office texted about some work thing." Just innocent comments, but always when Eduardo was around or when she might mention them later. Then, I accidentally sent Eduardo a text meant for Ellie about how she looked stunning in that outfit she wore to meet her friend after work. meeting that never happened. I deleted it quickly with a quick, sorry, wrong person, but the damage was done. His reply was just NP, but I could practically hear the suspicion through the phone. For Ellie, I started planting doubts about Eduardo's finances, mentioning I heard his business was struggling and asking if she knew he was behind on his HOA payments. I made that up, just little breadcrumbs of doubt. Watching them squirm has been oddly satisfying. I'm not typically like this. I've never been the type to revel in others' suffering. But knowing they were planning to kill me changes the rules. The cameras I installed caught some interesting conversations. They're still plotting the accident on my fishing trip, but now there's tension. In one video, Ellie asked Eduardo about a woman who keeps commenting on his social media posts, and he got defensive. In another, they argued about money, as Eduardo seemed to expect a larger cut than Ellie wanted to give him. Trouble in murder paradise. I've been gathering all these recordings and screenshots, building my case. I even filmed myself opening that unmarked bottle from her purse while wearing gloves. It turned out to be some kind of powder, and I sent a small sample to a mail-in testing service. The results should come back next week. Meanwhile, I've been establishing what my lawyer refers to as a pattern of close calls, making it appear I've been having strange accidents. I mentioned to Ellie that I almost fell down the stairs carrying laundry and that I got a bandage on my arm after swerving to avoid a cat while driving and scraping against a wall. Nothing major, just enough to make her and Eduardo anxious that I might accidentally die before their big plan. Each time I shared these incidents, her expression was a mix of concern and disappointment, as if she was worried I might outsmart her by dying on my own. Last week, I initiated the financial chaos phase. I discovered some unauthorized credit, card charges, and called the bank while Ellie was home, making a big show of my worry about identity theft. I had all our cards cancelled and new ones issued. The temporary freeze on our accounts sent Ellie into a panic. She kept checking her phone and texting Eduardo frantically. I had never seen someone so stressed about not being able to use a credit card for 3 days. Oh, and I casually mentioned to our neighbor across the street, who happens to be best friends with Eduardo's ex-wife, that I was considering real estate investments and heard Eduardo might have some good insights. I dropped that we'd been seeing a lot of him lately, especially when I wasn't home. The look on her face told me everything I needed to know. Gossip would spread quickly. This plan isn't just about psychologically messing with them. It's about creating a safety net for myself while making them increasingly desperate and careless. I took an unexpected day off last Wednesday without telling Ellie, parked down the street and watched our house. Sure enough, Eduardo showed up an hour after I usually would have left and stayed for 3 hours. I captured it all on my phone. When I later checked my home cameras, they were discussing the timeline again. Eduardo seemed anxious, saying they needed to be more cautious, while Ellie assured him everything would be fine once they took care of things next month. Here's where it gets interesting. I decided to test how committed they really were. I told Ellie I was cancelling the fishing trip next month, claiming my brother broke his ankle. He didn't, but we're postponing it. The colour drained from her face. She actually tried to persuade me to go alone, saying I deserved some me time and shouldn't miss out just because of my brother. The same woman who had complained about my fishing trips for years suddenly couldn't wait to get me on that lake. Alone, red flag factory. The psychological warfare is working. Ellie has been making careless mistakes, leaving her phone unlocked on the counter yesterday. I caught a glimpse of a text to Eduardo saying they needed a new plan and expressing concern about the money situation. I also found receipts for some sketchy online purchases in her email, one for an untraceable phone and another for a keylogger. Looks like she's trying to spy on me too. Amateur hour. Last night was the biggest move yet. I disappeared for 48 hours without telling Ellie where I was going and didn't answer my phone. I just vanished and stayed at a motel 2 towns over, using cash and keeping my phone off. For all they knew, I could have been dead in a ditch somewhere. The cameras caught their reaction. Ellie called Eduardo in a panic about 6 hours after I should have been home. He came over, and they searched the house, checked my social media, and even called hospitals, not out of concern, but because they were scared. Eduardo kept saying this wasn't part of the plan, and Ellie worried about the insurance payout, mentioning that you need a body to claim that money. I returned home Sunday evening as if nothing had happened, saying I needed time to clear my head and went camping alone. The look on Ellie's face was priceless. Relief, mixed with annoyance and confusion. She tried to act mad that I worried her, but I could see her mind racing, recalculating. That night, I overheard her on the phone in the bathroom. The walls in our house are thin, and she was whispering loudly, mentioning getting suspicious and needing to move quickly. They're getting desperate and making mistakes. Here's where things currently stand. I've secured most of our money, collected solid evidence of their plotting, and created tension between them. They're increasingly paranoid and careless. I've convinced Ellie I have no clue what's happening. The thing is, I'm not done yet, not even close. Phase 2 starts tomorrow. I've cancelled that life insurance policy they were so eager about. The paperwork went through yesterday, and Ellie doesn't know yet. When she finds out, that should be interesting. I'm also meeting Eduardo for beers tomorrow. Yes, you read that right. I called him up and suggested we hang out to get to know each other better, since he's around so much. He couldn't refuse without raising suspicion. I plan to get him drunk and see what he divulges, maybe plant more seeds about Ellie's other friends. The final touch, I'm going on that fishing trip after all, but not in the way they expect. I'll update again when there's more to share. For those worried about my safety, don't be. I sleep with my door locked, prepare my own meals, and have a friend checking in on me daily. These two are not criminal masterminds. They're a bored housewife and a desperate guy who think they're smarter than they really are. Final update. Hey Reddit, many of you have been DMing me asking what happened, if I'm still alive, etc. Spoiler alert, I am, and things have evolved. Buckle up. This is going to be lengthy. That beer with Eduardo I mentioned, it went better than I could have imagined. I met him at a dive bar downtown, a place with sticky floors and cheap pitchers. I told Ellie I was meeting buddies from my gambling support group, and she actually encouraged me to go, probably hoping I'd crash on the way home. Eduardo can't handle his alcohol. After 3 beers, he was slurring and getting emotional about his divorce, money troubles, and his complicated situation. I played dumb, nodding along and buying more rounds. By beer 5, I casually mentioned that Ellie seemed stressed lately and asked if he knew why. That's when things got interesting. He started rambling about how plans change and people aren't always who they appear to be, then dropped this bomb. Ellie had apparently been talking to her ex recently and keeping her options open. Eduardo was clearly furious about it, feeling deceived. I acted surprised, asked more questions, and recorded the entire conversation on my phone. The next morning, I told Ellie about running into Eduardo at the bar and how he seemed upset about a woman who's been playing games with him. The expression on her face was priceless. It was like she knew something was off. That same day, I discovered fraudulent activity on our remaining joint account. While Ellie was present, I called the bank and made a show of being worried about identity theft. I froze our accounts pending investigation. Ellie nearly had a panic attack but tried to hide it, asking when they would be unfrozen. I shrugged and said it could take days or weeks, as the bank needed to verify all recent transactions, including those cash withdrawals she thought I hadn't noticed. Things escalated when I received a call from the testing service about that. Powder from Ellie's purse. Thankfully, it wasn't poison, just crushed sleeping pills. Strong ones, prescription strength. It seems their plan was to knock me out before staging the accident. The call happened while Ellie was in the room. I pretended it was about a job application, but made sure to repeat test results and sample, loudly enough for her to hear. I watched her face drain of color. Meanwhile, my anonymous tip to Eduardo's workplace about possible ethics violations started bearing fruit. I received a panicked text from him asking if Ellie had mentioned anything about his work situation. I played dumb again, but later overheard Ellie on the phone with him. Something about an internal review and how he needed to stay calm. My hidden cameras caught her pacing and telling him they needed to put everything on hold. Then came the nuclear option. I left my laptop open again, this time with a draft email to a divorce lawyer visible. It detailed all my suspicions about Ellie's affair with Eduardo, the life insurance policy, the mysterious powder, everything. It looked like I was gathering evidence but hadn't sent it yet. Then I accidentally left location sharing on my phone activated and went to meet my actual lawyer, ensuring my location showed I was at a law office. When I returned home, Ellie was in full damage control mode. She made my favorite dinner, suggested we watch a sci-fi movie I'd been wanting to see, and even initiated sex for the first time in months, all while her phone buzzed with texts. She was clearly trying to ignore Eduardo in full panic mode. The next day, I sat Ellie down and calmly told her I knew about her and Eduardo, just the affair, not the murder plot. I said I'd seen the texts and noted the pattern of him visiting when I was away. I told her I wanted a divorce. Her reaction wasn't what I expected. She admitted to the affair but claimed it was over, saying Eduardo had been pressuring her for money and threatening to tell me everything if she didn't pay up. She insisted she had been trying to end things for weeks, crying and begging. Not a word about the murder plot. She painted herself as the victim and Eduardo as the villain. I nodded along. saying I needed time to think and asked her to stay with her sister for a few days. Reluctantly, she agreed. The moment she left, I sent Eduardo a carefully edited recording of Ellie from my hidden cameras, just the parts where she talked about him being unstable and threatening her. I made it look like she had thrown him under the bus. His response was a barrage of texts, calling her every name imaginable. He claimed she was the one who devised the plan in the first place, and that she had promised him they would split everything, 50-50 after it was done. He didn't explicitly mention murder, but it was close enough. I saved every message. While they were busy imploding, I executed the financial endgame. I filed for divorce, citing infidelity with evidence. My lawyer helped me secure temporary orders, freezing most of our assets and changed the locks on the house. Legally, my name is the only one on the deed. I cut off Ellie's access to what little remained in our joint accounts. Eduardo's situation deteriorated even more rapidly. The ethics investigation uncovered some actual shady dealings, resulting in his suspension pending review. His ex-wife heard rumors about him and Ellie and filed for a modification of their divorce settlement, claiming he had hidden assets. The house of cards was collapsing. Watching them self-destruct should have felt more fulfilling than it did. Don't get me wrong, there's satisfaction in seeing justice unfold, but there's also a hollow feeling. 8 years of marriage reduced to this toxic conclusion. Some nights, I still wake up wondering how I missed the signs earlier. About a week after Ellie left, the voice messages started. The first few were angry, asking how I could do this to her. She claimed she had no proof and would get what she deserved in the divorce. Then they shifted to pleading and desperate. She couldn't access any money. Her sister was kicking her out, and Eduardo was threatening her. Could she please just come home to talk? I saved every message, each one more desperate than the last. The turning point came 3 days ago when I found a notebook tucked behind the dresser while clearing out some of Ellie's things. Inside were detailed notes about my schedule, my habits, lists of accidents that could happen naturally, research on life insurance payouts and waiting periods, and most damning of all, a step-by-step plan for the fishing trip, including Eduardo's role in ensuring I didn't return that night. I texted Ellie, asking her to meet me at a coffee shop the next day, a public place with plenty of witnesses. When she arrived, she looked terrible, clearly stressed and sleep-deprived. She immediately launched into her victim routine. I let her talk for 5 minutes straight. When she finally paused for breath, I slid the notebook across the table silently. The look on her face was like watching a transmission fail in real time, a complete system shutdown. She stammered some explanation about it being fiction for a writing class she was taking. I just stared at her and finally told her I knew everything. The power outage, the wine glasses, the entire murder plot. Then I laid out her options. Option 1, I take everything I have, the recordings, the notebook, the powder test results, Eduardo's text basically admitting their plot, to the police. Option 2, she signs the divorce papers I brought with me. The terms were non-negotiable. She would receive nothing except her personal belongings and her car, with no alimony, no house equity, and no shared assets. She would have to leave town permanently. She sat there for what felt like an eternity, just staring at the notebook. Finally, she asked in a small voice if I had really known all along. When I nodded, she began to laugh. Not a joyful laugh, but a broken one, teetering on the edge of tears. She said she had thought I was too oblivious to notice anything, which is why they had chosen me, a simple target with a decent insurance payout. Hearing her say that out loud should have hurt, but it didn't. I felt nothing, like I was watching a stranger talk about someone else entirely. She wasn't the woman I had married. Maybe she never had been. She signed the papers right there without even reading them and asked if I would really go to the police if she didn't comply. The look I gave her was answer enough. As she was leaving, she turned back and asked how long I had known. I told her since the power outage. She shook her head and mumbled about how different things could have been before walking out. Eduardo didn't fare any better. I sent him screenshots of the notebook pages, along with a simple message, leave town, or I will take this to the police. He didn't even respond. He just listed his house for sale the next day. So here we are, divorce papers filed. The house is quiet, their lives in ruins, while I'm, well, not great but intact and moving forward. As for the powder, I received the test results, revealing enough sedatives to knock out a horse. They would have made it easy to stage the fishing accident they had planned. As for where things stand now, Ellie is staying with a friend 2 towns over, unemployed, broke, and her reputation ruined after I inadvertently let our mutual friends know about the affair. The murder plot remains between us for now. Eduardo's house is on the market. His career is in tatters, and his ex-wife is reopening their divorce case. Karma is a harsh mistress. I've started seeing a therapist, as discovering that my wife of 6 years wanted me dead leaves emotional scars. I even downloaded a dating app last week and had coffee with someone. Nothing serious, but it's nice to remember that normal people exist. I'm not the same person I was before all this. More cautious, less trusting, but also stronger in ways I never anticipated. Like an engine rebuilt after catastrophic failure. Different parts, same function. Maybe even running better than before. Some of you have asked if I regret not going to the police. Honestly, sometimes I do. But prosecution would have been messy, public, and there was no guarantee they would serve real time. This way, they lost everything that mattered to them. Money, reputation, security, while I get to quietly rebuild my life. Life is strange. One power outage changed everything. If I'd come home at the usual time that day, I might be dead now, floating face down in a lake while Ellie collected my life insurance. Instead, I'm in my house, enjoying a beer and sharing this final update with internet strangers who have been surprisingly supportive throughout this ordeal. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't an elaborate scheme. It's simply making people face the consequences of their actions while you walk away intact. So that's it. Story over. No more updates after this one. Time to close this chapter and start anew.